all of this will be explained via the Kia. So again, what is the Kia? It's kind of a silly, but I think useful analogy to why we need crypto agility, right? And so if you look at, again, over the last couple of years, there was this incident mid-2022 where Hyundai and Kia models started to get stolen at an unprecedented rate. So what you're seeing here is in blue, the fraction of cars that were stolen that were Hyundai and Kia versus the gray, which is all cars stolen, right? And you can see for some time, it was roughly proportional to how many Hyundai and Kia models were sold relative to all cars. But then all of a sudden, mid-2022, right, they become like half of all cars stolen across the country. And the reason for this is that they had a problem with their immobilizer that allowed them to be stolen very easily and kind of blew up on TikTok. And it was like a fad to steal these cars, kind of amazing. Fortunately, they were able to issue a software patch and everything went back to normal. That being said, it begs the question of what if the cars had been too old or difficult to patch, right? What if this was just built in and a vulnerability and your car was going to get stolen? What if Kia had gone out of business or Hyundai had gone out of business, right? Who would have taken up the mantle to fix these cars? And then how can we be sure that every car has been fixed, right? We know every car that's been produced, but maybe the car crashed, maybe it broke down and it's no longer out on the road, right? All of these result in a situation that is a broken car that can be stolen. So do you continue to drive your car or do you kind of lock it away in like a storage area that no one can get access to so it can't be stolen? Well, of course, you continue using that and you risk accept that the car might get stolen as evidenced, right, by those big blue bars in 2022. And the reason for this is that there's a central problem, which is coupling of the security to the core value. In this case, it's the coupling of that immobilizer to the core value of the car, which is transportation. People still needed to get where they were going. They've already outlaid some amount of expenditure to pay for this infrastructure, right? You already bought a car. You're not going to go out and buy a new car to try and get around this problem, right? You're going to just have to go with what you got. And that means, right, that you have to use a car that is at risk of being stolen. And that's, again, why we get those big blue bars. It turns out that there is a very similar parallel, right, within networks and their transport and legacy encryption for the enterprise, right? And so what you're seeing on the left is the various versions of SSL and TLS that have been deprecated somewhat recently, or I guess really over the last 15 years. And what you'll see is that if you empirically look at networks today, there's still a ton of traffic that is non-compliant with these newer modern versions of TLS. And in fact, there's also a lot of traffic that's completely unencrypted. So how is this, how do we find ourselves in this situation? Well, of course, right, it's very similar to the Kia where businesses have invested in this infrastructure. The primary value of this infrastructure is still giving the business enterprise value. And even though it's vulnerable in terms of its encryption, right, the risk of it being stolen or providing, right, a foothold to an attacker is still less than the business value that it's creating as an application, right? And so this is how we end up with the situation where businesses are using out-of-date encryption or non-compliant encryption even though they know that they shouldn't be, and their regulators and insurers are telling them to please change, right? So this problem only gets worse, right? Even if you're using modern encryption when quantum comes around, because now it's not only are you using an outdated version of TLS, even if you're on the most modern version of TLS, right? You still have the problem of the actual algorithm that you're using to secure the data in transit and the certificates on those secure communication channels. And so without getting too much into the details, right, there are new encryption standards that are causing folks to move not only onto the newest versions of infrastructure with TLS 1.3, but also onto newer algorithms within TLS 1.3 to be able to defeat the threat of quantum computing, right? So when you're doing this, you can imagine at least two ways of upgrading to modern versions of encryption. On the left, you're seeing an approach that we've always taken, which is the current dogma of I have app and security v1, I move to app and security v2, right? Craig just told us, hey, there's an ASCII exploit coming. Can you please update your machines, right? We went from, whatever it was, OS 15.1 to OS 15.1.2, whatever it is. I don't remember. Sorry, Craig, it's probably the wrong thing. But you could also imagine a model where instead of updating the actual operating system or the application itself and changing the code there, You could also have an approach where you would update independently just the security. So the application remains the same, but you update the security instead, right? And again, from the outset and on the outside, these two things look roughly equivalent, right? If you're looking from the outside of the application, which we're treating here as the relevant security boundary, you go blue, gold, green, and the same thing here on the right, blue, gold, green, again, from looking from the outside. The difference comes in, right? What happens if you need to actually couple together the application and the security, and yet you can't update to that newest version, right? Again, the manufacturer has gone out of business, or you've stopped paying for that contract, or whatever has happened, you are now stuck on application and security v2. But if you imagine a model where you could update the security independently, right, from application v1 to application v1, still the same, but now security v2, you can continue on, right, unlike the Kia that you see on the left, and get stuck with that risk of introducing, right, a vulnerability into the network. You can now move to security v3. You can say, even application v1, I have no manufacturer ability to update or source code ability to update that thing. I can still go to the newest version of that security because I have crypto agility. And so all of this, right, is the framing that we introduce to customers when they ask, hey, why can't I just wait for my vendor to upgrade to PQC? Why can't I do this or that? What is the point? The whole point is crypto agility. It's defeating the root of the problem, that is brittle cryptography. So we started publishing on this well over 2 years ago now. August 2023 is the latest version of our white paper with Accenture for orchestrated crypto agility. But so too NIST has also drawn their line in the sand in the newest paper in 2025 from considerations for achieving crypto agility. And I think you all have seen this great win that we had on our architecture from Forrester, where they claimed that the goal for the PQC remediation exercise for architects is actually crypto agility, not just PQC. So within the crypto agility arena, right, there's 4 stages within the cryptographic management lifecycle that encompasses crypto agility. And you'll see from various institutes like DHS or Accenture or these consulting folks that there's either a 4-step plan, 6-step plan, 8-step plan, whatever. But essentially they can be all reduced to something along these lines, which is some version of discovery, right? You need to know what's in the network in order to be able to fix it. You need to have the ability to custom fit policy to the things that you discover, right? What are your high value assets? What are the things that your organization thinks it's most important to remediate first? Then taking those things from the prioritized list out of the policy to remediation. And finally, after remediating, being able to report out on them in a standardized format, in this case, a cryptographic bill of materials, hopefully compliant with the CycleNDX 1.6 format. And again, the idea here is not that you're just doing this one time to get you through PQC, but every time, right, there's a new CVE or some problem with the cryptography that you're using, you can go through this process in order to discover, prioritize, remediate, and have empirical verification that you've actually completed the task. The QProtect R3 platform that we are introducing as of today to the company and a couple of weeks to the broader world tackles these 4 areas with the 3 Rs. QProtect Reconnaissance fits discovery and policy. QProtect Resilience supports active remediation, and QProtect Reporting gives you that real-time inventory, again, that empirical verification that you've done what you think you have done in terms of remediation, and allows you a way to federate across any other vendor that allows for the CycleNDX 1.6 format, so you can report out to regulators that you have actually achieved the post-quantum status or the TLS 1.3 status or whatever it is that you claim. All right, so hopefully that gives folks a little bit of insight into why the R3 platform, right? It's all about crypto agility, folks.